All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here with VAWA's Quarantine Conversations. My name is Brian Hazard from VAWA, and usually we talk to Virginia college coaches, and we have a small little capital right above Northern Virginia called Washington, D.C. I don't know if any of you all have ever heard of it, but it's right in between Maryland and Virginia, and obviously they're always fighting for statehood. So we are going to claim American as a Virginia school. And today we are so fortunate to have Coach Teague Moore on the call from American. 9 years he's been in American University. Hey, Coach, how you doing? And tell me a little bit about what's going on in quarantine up there in the nation's capital.
Well, I actually live in Maryland, so I'm not in the district, although the university is, right? But I want to say, number one, I appreciate you for accepting us into the Virginia family. I appreciate it, even though I have a Maryland driver's license and I send my tax money to Larry Hogan. Quarantine life at the Moore house is ridiculous. I've got 4 kids. We have 2 dogs. We have a hedgehog. We had a hamster up until last week. The hamster didn't make it through quarantine. Yeah, he was running his 4,000 26-mile marathon during the night, and apparently it was too much for his little heart, and we lost him. So Bear has been buried. So we're down 1 member of the family, but we still got the hedgehog, we still got the dogs. Unfortunately, we still have the 4 kids, and my wife and I. So it's good. We're surviving.
I gave you a list of questions, but I'm going to go off script right away because that's what I do. One of the things I know about you is, you're a family man. I watch how proud you are of the
debatable,
the swimming and diving, the dance, the wrestling, all these different things. How do you balance the time between family and coaching? And I know it's hard because I told you I've been home more in the last 3 months than I have in my 23 years of marriage. But tell me a little bit about how you balance that.
So I think I'm like any other average American or any other wrestling coach. I balance it like a very bad circus act. I get up on the high wire and I try to walk, and then I fall off. I fall left. I fall right. My kids are throwing plates at me. My wife has a big bucket of old tomatoes that she throws at my head. You do what you can, right? So most people who know me know that I'm Catholic. I put my spiritual foundation in the Catholic Church and in Christ. And so honest to God, like my day to day, some days there's just a lot coming at you. So as I said, we got everybody at home. You also got the whole college team, anywhere from 20 to 30 guys at any given year that you're having to watch out for and help mentor and all those sort of things, trying to keep the administration rolling with what American University wants me to do. It's a really precarious act. And I will say, for me, I'm very OCD on how I do things. Like I need things in a certain order, in a certain way. And so for me, time management is key. And Brian, you've had conversations with me where literally you're saying something and I look at my watch and my brain shifts and I say, I really apologize, but I have to be in the car because I got a 23-minute drive up to Shady Grove Road and I have to be at the pool because 3 of the kids are getting ready to swim freestyle and one of them's on the dive team in a different pool and I have to leave right now. So for me, time management is key. And I've got alarms on all my phones that are constantly going off. And as soon as the alarm goes off and I see what I got to do, I got to shift gears and change my hat and then go either be a dad, be a husband, be a coach.
Speaking of that time management, and we'll get into American University now, are you able, and I've told you before, as a high school coach, I put my faith into 15 to 18-year-old boys and girls, which is never a good thing. You put your faith into 18 to 23-year-old boys. And are you able to instill some of those time management skills into your athletes? How difficult is that when you're getting a freshman coming in to really get that here's your times and here's where you need to be at certain times.
Interview Josh and David Terrell, who were from Hawaii, totally West Coast. Hey, bro, practice started at 1:30. Like, yeah, it's 1:45. Like, what are you upset about, coach? Yeah, that is something that from day one, when we start recruiting and guys are coming into the program, I will let them know that we have to do things, especially at American University, on a very strict timeline. Our academic goals and what we're trying to accomplish outside of the wrestling room, it's very rigid, right? And I'm a firm believer that you've got to be in every class, you've got to be in every study hall, every small group study. So our practices, guys have to know when they're waking up so that they have enough time to get there and get ready and prepared for a workout. When the workout ends, make sure your hygiene's good and you're cleaned up and you're ready to go to class mentally and physically. And when you go in class, be present there, right? And when that's over and you go to study hall, be present in study hall and be willing to open the book up and get the work done in the class that needs to be done. So all of that is absolutely time management. And some of the biggest struggles that I've had in my coaching 20 years, right, have been athletes that struggle with that time management. Because if you set up an individual workout, and if my coaching schedule only allows that 30-minute window for us to get an individual, if you show up 15 minutes late, like we got 15 minutes to work, because I'm reluctant to my schedule because the next guy coming in, I don't want to mess with his individual time. Or maybe I have a meeting that I can't push off from the athletic director. So we have to be kind of rigid on what we do with that time management. 24 hours a day is just not enough for what we're trying to accomplish. And so we have to be diligent on what we do with every hour and every minute within each day.
Absolutely. So you started your wrestling career in Pittsburgh, wrestling for North Allegheny. You went on and competed at Oklahoma State, where you're an NCAA champion, and then you jumped right into assistant coaching at Oklahoma State. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Well, no, not at Oklahoma State. I finished school in 99 at Oklahoma State in December of 99 because I never redshirted. So when I finished my wrestling career at Oklahoma State, I had one semester of school left. I had 21 credits, so I put them all into the fall semester. I graduated in December of 99. I took an assistant coaching job at Pitt, and I went and worked for Randy Stottlemyre at Pitt during the 2000 and 2001 seasons. And so that was my first coaching stint as an assistant coach. And back in those days, we didn't have RTCs to fund people that wanted to train for the Olympics. You pretty much you rubbed your two pennies together and you did whatever you could do to make ends meet so that you could go and represent Team USA. And that first coaching position that Coach Stottlemyre, thank goodness, gave me the opportunity with was at Pitt. And then I started bouncing around to Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Harvard, and so on and so forth.
Harvard, Clarion, and then at American for the last 9 years.
Yeah.
Talk about the genesis and talk about the changes that you've made and maybe mindset or as a coach in those different coaching places. How have you changed your outlook on coaching?
Well, I tell my coaches this all the time, my assistant coaches, because usually we're bringing young coaches in and they're going to change throughout the process. And I've said this on other interviews. I like the coach I am today to where I was 20 years ago when I took that first assistant job at Pitt. Completely different person, like black and white. They don't even look, sound, or feel like the same two people. There are days when I wake up and I say, did I make the right changes? Because I've changed drastically. I've changed quite a bit, right, over the 20 years. There's some days I wake up and I say, I don't know if the changes were for the best. And then there's other days I wake up and I say, thank God I made the changes that I did, because I wouldn't, if I were trying to coach today like I assistant coached in 2001, I wouldn't have a job. I'd be fired for sure.
Right.
Right. So part of it is live and learn. Like I go through the process and go, whoa, or I've seen another coach make a decision or make a mistake. And I was able to watch that and go, okay, I have to be aware that my tendencies would have me do the same thing. I have to be aware of that and make a cognitive decision at that time so that I can have a future in coaching.
Sure. And, you talked about changes and we discussed that. Obviously you've been around some amazing coaches in your time, whether it be as an assistant or even just being surrounded. But what are your pillars that, you just say, this is my coaching philosophy. These are my, non-compromised. I'm always going to stick by these values. What are some things that you really try to instill in the culture of your program?
Right. I appreciate you asking this because I feel like this is one of the things that separates American University Wrestling from the other Division I's that are out there, right? So number one, first and foremost, is we're trying to develop the whole student athlete, okay? Over the years, and this was a really tough pill for me to swallow. When I was at Oklahoma State, there was one goal, and that was to be a national champion, right? Nothing else was to get in the way of that. Your academics, don't let those academics get in the way of you being a national champion, right? Personal lifestyle choices, decisions you're making, none of that mattered. If the results came on the mat, then everything else was good, right? I would feel like I'm on the total opposite end of that spectrum at this point in time. At American University, the whole student athlete to me means a young man that can balance his wrestling goals with his academic goals, and then the lifestyle piece. And the lifestyle piece to me is summed up in, we ask our guys to join and commit to a no drinking, no drugs lifestyle. And in 2020, that is, we're out on an island by ourselves because the rest of the world and the rest of society, like there was a thing on campus a few years ago where they were pushing this idea of it's your right to party, right? And as soon as I saw this going on, I brought our guys in. I said, whoa, hold up. Let's look at what that means, right? For you as an NCAA athlete, number one, your right to party can also mean that the school in the NCAA can take your right away to compete, right? So let's be aware of what that decision and the consequences could be from there, right? And then, as most wrestling people know, personally, I went through a really tough experience with my brother Ty. My brother Ty was an incredible high school wrestler, went on and wrestled at the University of North Carolina. Unfortunately, during college and after college, he started going down a path that ultimately at age 44 led to his death, right? He died of alcoholism, and it was really unfortunate to watch and see that whole process take place. So part of my coaching philosophy and culture at American University, I can boil it down to this simple statement. If my brother Ty walked into my office as a recruit and said, I want to wrestle at American University, how would I coach that young man so that when he leaves American in 5 years, he's prepared and ready to take the next steps in his life, so the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years are successful, he's happy, and he's healthy, right? So that 5 years with me, I put a big emphasis and importance on every athlete in my program. If this were my brother that I were coaching, how would I handle that, right? And so that kind of sums up the culture that I want to build at AU. I want the whole student athlete. I want the guy that wants to be a national champion. He wants to excel in the classroom, and ultimately with his life decisions, he's never going to put himself or the program in a detrimental place that they could be talking about cutting the program because, maybe some guys go to a frat party and beat somebody up, or guys go online on social media and post some things that they shouldn't be posting. And then our program is on the chopping block, right? So it's a lot. It's been a very thorough and thought out cognitive process to get me where I'm at right now. I don't look, if anybody looks at AU's wrestling results, where they were at with Mark Cody and where they're at with Teague Moore, it doesn't take a genius to say Mark Cody was getting it done on the mats with his guys, right? What I would hope is every parent and every coach would also look at our program and see the results of our young men and what they're doing after American University, med schools, law schools, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs. Like, we have some extremely successful individuals that have come out in my tenure.
Well, and that's my next question is, when you're looking at the draw to American University, obviously it's in the nation's capital, but when you're recruiting young men for your program, what are some things that you're really looking for and telling them as you recruit them? You talked about the lifestyle, you talked about the wrestling, obviously, but what are some sell that you can do for your university as one of the top universities in the country?
So AU, not a lot of people know this, but American University per capita of students on campus, we're a small private school, like just over 7,000 students on campus. Per capita of those students, we have the most internships of students of any school in the country. So what that means is, if you come to American University, not just the wrestling program, our alumni help put our athletes into internships so that they can get experience in the field they're studying and hopefully know that that's what they want to do after they're done with college. But also the university is working extremely hard to get those students that experience as well. Okay, so that's a number one big selling point. Number two, right now in my 9 years, we've graduated about 75% of our wrestlers with an undergrad and a master's in their 5 years, right? So that is, in Division I wrestling, it's almost unheard of that 3 out of 4 of your wrestlers are leaving with a master's degree. From a parent perspective, when you look at the dollars and cents for an undergrad and a master's program, at most schools, you're going to do 5 years of undergrad, 2 years of master's work, add that up over 7 years. How much debt or how much does that cost? What American does is, when you're coming through the undergrad program, the university keeps everyone on a 4-year track. Even our wrestlers that redshirt are academically staying on a 4-year track towards graduation. Because we do internships and most of our guys do summer classes, they actually usually finish their undergrad in 3.5. We have a process called dual enrollment at American University that allows the rising senior, if they know what they want to study in their master's program, they can apply, get accepted in their master's. Their senior year of undergrad and their first year of master's gets overlapped. And so you shorten the time span to get that undergrad and master's. And that's why we have so many guys leave with 2 degrees in a 5-year span.
And can I come and wrestle for you, Coach Moore?
So I wanted to talk to you about your work ethic. Yes, if you have a year of eligibility, absolutely. We need another 197-pounder. And by the looks of it, quarantine has been doing its job.
Oh, I'm so hungry. This interview is actually cutting into my breakfast, lunch, my brunch, a couple of my meals.
Brunch/snack milkshake section. And so, for fans out there, I want you to understand, Brian and I have a great history. And before this call, he made a lot of short jokes. He made fun of my personal manhood. So I'm only trying to get him back publicly.
Hey, can you move over just a little bit? Because you're not quite centered in between yours.
Can I go like that? Brian knows that I'm OCD. So anybody watching this, if you look at my home office that I set up, I struggle if my head starts to move closer to one side or the other. So it's part of my tendencies, and I apologize if you keep seeing me kind of lean as I'm talking like that, because I don't like the imbalance.
Oh, so we talked about balance in your life. We talked about family. We talked about competing. I'd also like to talk, because you had an a fantastic international career. And recently you were named the coach of the U23 World Team. You took that team overseas. And how important is it for your kids? And I'm with Virginia Wrestling Association, where we we're trying to really talk about the Olympic styles. How important is it that your kids are competing in the off season, but wrestling, freestyle, Greco, and getting involved?
I'm a firm believer that and I think we were kind of glitching up there for a second. So hopefully I'm not glitching up on this. I firmly believe that your summer wrestling, specifically freestyle and Greco, helps strengthen the folk style wrestler that you are. And I think it was Matt Crumry from, he had wrote an article for USA Wrestling Magazine maybe a few years ago. And I thought that it was one of the best articles I had read on this point specifically. So I'll try and get it to as concise as possible. So this is the way my mind works. When I was growing up in Pennsylvania, to win the junior nationals in the summertime was like, that's where you really set yourself apart from everybody else in Pennsylvania. Because to win a state title was big, right? But if you won a state title and then a junior national title, you were like creme de la creme, okay? And so I was really blessed and fortunate to grow up with Mark Angle, who went and wrestled at Clarion. Everybody knows his uncle Kurt, right? But Marky and I went to the junior nationals, and we won the junior nationals 3 times in high school. I won it my sophomore, junior, senior. He was a 4-time finalist. He won it his freshman year, lost his sophomore, won it his junior and senior, okay? I tell you that because in the state of Pennsylvania, Mark and I each only won the states our senior year. So we could go and win junior nationals on the freestyle circuit, right? In those days, you remember those days, Brian, the brackets were like 8 foot long, right? It was an A, B, C, and D pool, right? So you had like 120 guys, 130 guys in your bracket. And so what I learned, Ray Brinzer, some people know the name Ray Brinzer. He had won 2 Fargo titles in freestyle, 1 in Greco maybe, or 2 and 2. I can't remember. He was really good. But
Gumby
won
3 of them, right?
Yes, I believe.
Gumby.
I believe.
He had him in his pocket.
He's one of the best coaches out there. He's very limber.
Yeah.
So what I learned by watching it is that when you really focused on your freestyle and your Greco, when folk style season came back around, your ability to shoot a high crotch and attack right through your opponent and not end up in a scramble position, which we see how scramble wrestling is, it's crazy in folk style, right?
Yeah.
I saw at that time that when you sharpened your freestyle skills so that you could expose your opponent without exposing your back, yourself, when you came to the folk style season, your technique was so much crisper and sharper, right? Your front headlock offense in freestyle just adds a whole different repertoire to your folk style wrestling. And so I saw that when I was growing up. Then I went to Oklahoma State, right? That's the time where Coach Smith is coming out with his 2nd Olympic title and 4 world titles. I had the opportunity to go to wrestle him at Oklahoma State. And at Oklahoma State, we were all focused on winning NCAA titles, but in the next breath of conversation was, are you going to win a world title? Are you going to win an Olympic title, right? And so that they were 2 married as one. You were focused on winning NCAA titles, but you also knew that the international was the next step at Oklahoma State. That's just where you graduate to. In today's world in college wrestling, I'm a firm believer, if you stick with folk style 12 months out of the year, you're going to experience some burnout, right? So the freestyle and the Greco gives us a few months to change gears, change focus, strengthen our skill set. And through the drilling and the practices, you're going to be a better college wrestler come next season. And so every summer we shift gears and we spend usually about 2.5 months through our club on freestyle and Greco.
Awesome. And I've watched your practices. I've brought my own son to your room, and I think you guys do an amazing job of building technique and actually spending a lot of time on the finer points of your technique, and that leads to you being an excellent technician because you pay attention to the small details in your life with your kids, and I appreciate that. Now, you talked a little bit about Oklahoma State and Coach Smith and his success on the mat. But one thing that he's also done, and you're a big part of this, is his coaching tree. You see it from some colleges, and the coaches don't really like each other. But I watch you guys at different events, and you guys really come together when you go to conventions or tournaments. How important is it for you to see yourself in that coaching tree at Oklahoma State? And I know that your coaching at American's much different than Coach Branch's or Coach Pendleton's or whomever else is out there, Pop Lizio at NC State. But how important is it for you to be a part of that tree?
Oh, it definitely brings a huge sense of pride that to know that you're a part of something really special, right? There was a Gable era when Gable came through and then stepped away from coaching. There were a lot of branches on that coaching tree. Right? Yeah. And to see where Oklahoma State is at right now from Coach Smith in his era and the guys that have now come out. And I mean, I haven't looked at the list lately, but you mentioned Pat Popolizio, Coleman Scott is at UNC, Kevin Ward's at Army, I'm an American, Branch at Wyoming, Pendleton now at Oregon State. There's a few more. Glenn Lanham is
Duke.
I think Glenn came through the same era as John, but he's at Duke, right? So, and then when you look at assistant coaches, they're everywhere.
Jeez, everywhere.
Yeah, those seeds have dropped everywhere. So it's really important. The thing I think that I give Coach Smith huge accolades on is when we were coming through, that wasn't we didn't talk about that very much. He never said to us, I expect you guys to go into coaching, right? So I think more than anything, to me, it's a tremendous example of the type of coaching that he led with that so many guys wanted to emulate that. So many of us said, I want to do that. And I think that is a phenomenal example of a great coach, a great person, right? Let's face it, if you fruits of our labor and what happens with those fruits is very impressive, right? Not to get biblical or philosophical too much into it, but to see what Coach Smith has done for the wrestling world at the college level is really impressive. And I don't know at the end of this, I don't know how many of us that came under his tutelage are going to end up as head coaches, but it's got to be one of the most in history that he's turned into head coaches.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so you guys are emulating some of the things that he has done, and you create your own examples for your own athletes and your own children. So I'm a high school coach. I work with VAWA. I've been a youth coach. My final question, and I've asked this of lots of coaches, what can I be doing, or what can our stakeholders be doing that are not college coaches to build and help your program succeed? You're doing the things in the room to build young men, but what can I be doing as a coach? What can the parents in my program be doing as wrestling parents to help you?
Awesome question. And I could go on for quite a while. So when I get boring and I get too in depth on this, I need you to just pound the top of your head like this, and that tells me to shut up. So here's the big thing. Number one, parents and coaches both at the high school level, be focused on creating well-rounded and responsible young men. There's nothing worse than a college coach, even if it's a great wrestler that comes into your room and the kid is just irresponsible, right? They're not accountable. They've been babied and pampered so much that as a college coach, when they come in your room at 17, 18 years old, you expect them, when you say, guys, we need you here at this time and this is what we're going to accomplish, you don't want to have to hold their hand through the process. As a college coach, you want those guys to come in and have that killer instinct and that want to succeed, that they're ready to get their shoes on. You give the directive and then they follow it, right? So create responsible, and accountable young men. And at some point in every young wrestler's life, they're going to screw up, right? What does the coach and mom and dad do to make them understand that wrestling's a privilege, not a right? If that's instilled at the high school level, when they come to us, it makes our job so much easier, right? Every athlete that comes into our room, when they view getting a chance to wrestle as a privilege, man, there's so much you can do with that athlete. The other athlete that comes in and sees it as their right to be on the team, man, you're going to deal with some headaches along that way. So that would be number one. Number two, I just listened. So I had the opportunity to be on a Zoom call on Monday with David Falk. He was Michael Jordan's agent, right? And part of this big documentary series that ESPN's putting out. So a really big privilege on Monday to be a part of that. He said something, and when I sat back, I said, man, that is the nail on the head in terms of recruiting. There's three really important things that I would say to any high school coach or any parent. Number one, teach your athlete or your son the proper techniques and skills. Be willing to get them with the coaches that are. I think you can help instill a work ethic, but work ethic almost comes instinctually to some people. You can give the building blocks, but ultimately the athlete's got to do that. You can present. So number one, you can present technique, proper technique and skills, and drill them on it. Number two, work ethic. You just kind of have to lead down that path, and hopefully they get it. Number three is character quality, right? Character quality. In my 20 years of coaching, I firmly believe character quality is refined from the parent or the coach that's willing to keep athletes accountable, reward them properly, right, when they do the right things, versus, I've worked with athletes and I see at the high school level, sometimes kids get rewarded because they got their hand raised. They did everything wrong leading up to it. They cut their weight wrong, right? They were bulimic. They were like doing all this crappy stuff. They win. And then it's almost like coach and dad are like, forget it. He won. Yeah, we won, right? But then the next week, the kid goes right down the same bad path. Why? Because he got his hand raised and everything worked out, right? So skills, work ethic, and then character. If you can implement those into your high school wrestler and pass them off to a college coach, every college coach, I promise you, if the guys in their room have those three things in a positive light, every college coach is going to love working for them, right? And working with them. So that would be my biggest piece of advice to anyone out there. And as a college coach, that's what I'm looking for. I want the guys that have those. It was just interesting that this week on that call, when he touched on it, I was like, man, he just summed up all the other things that I kind of think I'm looking for in the student athlete, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And you don't necessarily always see that from a professional athlete's, manager, because usually they're just trying to look for the money, and that's it. And it's good to hear that from other folks. Well, Coach Moore, hopefully we're doing enough, and I know you're recruiting all over the country. Being a private school, you have that ability to recruit all over the country, all over the world, and I just appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
And
can I add one last thing? Because I think this is so important to the parents, to the coaches. Be willing to get your athlete in front of the college coach. I think more often than not, people think, well, my son or my daughter now, the coach is going to come and find them and seek them out. Hey, let's face facts, right? Like we've got, I don't know what the number is, 75,000 high school athletes going on in the country right now. There's no possible way that any one coaching staff can be finding those diamonds in the rough and or the right kid to find the right fit for the program. Coaches and parents, be willing to put your package together, and you don't have to hire a consultant on this. The whole consultant hiring thing to help kids get looked at by coaches, waste of time, waste of money. Put an email together that says who your wrestler is. Put some links on there that we can watch their matches, and keep sending it. Keep putting it in front of us, right? If you send it and you don't get a response, don't take that as, well, they're just not interested. You'd be shocked to see how many emails a college wrestling coach or assistant coach gets dropped into their inbox every day. And that's not just recruiting. It's the administrative side of things.
Right.
It's the team thing. You're already dealing with the guys on the team and their parents and those sort of things. So just because they didn't see your first email, don't take them off your list. Keep putting it in front of that coach, because we need that. We need your eyes and ears out there for us.
Awesome. Well, I hope to be those eyes and ears for you. And I know that VAWA, we want to support your program. Hopefully, the kids that we're sending to you are meeting those criteria. I just appreciate you coming on today and
Amen, buddy. Thank you for doing this. And I appreciate what you're doing, coming up with new ideas and concepts like this over quarantine. It's where we have to go, right? I still want to get the word out about American University Wrestling. You still want to let people know what's happening in the wrestling world. So I appreciate you taking the time, the effort, the energy to get these sort of things done. Unfortunately, this is the world that we're in right now. I hope it's changing and we're going back as soon as we can. But the reality is, we might not. This may be a big part of our future of trying to find where wrestling is going on and where it's at.
Awesome. Well, Coach, you are the best, and I'd love to come to one of your kids' swim meets and hang out with you, and we'll cheer.
Absolutely.
And we'll cheer because I'm going to be at Bender watching your team, and so have a great afternoon. And
thank you.
Do anything, let me know.
Absolutely. And don't forget, when you shave that cat off of your face, save it in a jar, because you might use it down the road somewhere. Quarantine, we never know what's going to run out at the local supermarket or Home Depots. You might need that to keep yourself warm in the future.
Might. You're right. You're awesome.
All right, bud.
All right, dude.
Yeah,
talk to you soon.
Yep. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.